It is the year 2018, and zombie contents have dominated the mainstream media for nearly 2 decades now. It's true that the genre has been popularized in the past, but it's never quite captured the imagination of people as it has in recent years. I personally felt the zombie fatigue had hit me hard during the Season 7 of The Walking Dead. But the recent news of the new Xbox exclusive game, State of Decay, has got me very excited about the topic all over again. So today, with my renewed interest in the zombie pop culture, I wanted to dig deeper into the science behind the zombie outbreak, to find out if it could happen in real life. And in the event that it becomes a reality, I would like to know if human beings could actually survive it. Let's start this out by first eliminating what isn't possible. And the first question that I would ask is it possible to reanimate the dead? The answer is unsurprisingly a no. There have been documented cases wherein a person had been clinically dead for tens of minutes and miraculously brought back from the dead by medical doctors. However, reanimation in the manner of the film Night of the Living Dead and The Walking Dead are scientifically impossible. At the very least, that's the general consensus of the scientific community. Then I would ask the next set of questions. Just how long can the classic zombie continue to have functioning body? Can they really walk around for miles on in search of their next meal? Because unlike the film 28 Days Later, which we'll delve into later in the video, the classical zombies are literally the dead walking. Their bodies decompose with time, and eventually they should be nothing more than pus and bones. As a matter of fact, decomposition begins within 24 hours of death. Your eyeballs will be one of the first body parts to go bad. They are basically big sacks of fluid, so they won't last long when the body is no longer alive. Therefore, unlike the zombies in films, the real zombies, if they did exist, would be walking blind within weeks of reanimation. I can rehash all sorts of medical facts found on the web, but basically what it boils down to when it comes to decomposition is that temperature and moisture are the biggest factors on how fast the body decomposes. In places such as Georgia and Florida, where they have hot and humid climate, bodies can decompose completely in 9 months, whereas in colder climate regions, it could take up to 3 years of time. However, it's important to note that during the process of decomposition, zombies will begin to shed their skin, expediting decomposition by revealing more of the inner body parts to a point that bones will just fall off because ligaments and tendons will be the next parts to go after the eyes, the internal organs, and the skin. With that being said, can zombies really walk around for as long as they do in films? And the answer is no. To which then it really begs the question, can a zombie outbreak such as the one in the TV show The Walking Dead happen in real life? I think you know the answer already, and yes, you're right, it is not possible. Having eliminated the Walking Dead type of scenario, we could just end the video right here. However, if we could possibly dispose of the diseased aspect of the zombie and solely concentrate on creating a mindless, aggressive human-eating human, then we can open many other doors of possibilities to bring about a spectacular ending to our civilization. This is where I want to bring back the film 28 Days Later. And I'm aware they don't call it a zombie in that particular film, and it's technically not the dead walking. In the film, they simply call the zombie-like beings the infected. It's also notable to mention that they actually run instead of walking, and they are alive. Which is again why I ask you to widen the scope of what we could call a zombie outbreak. In the film, the rage virus is what brings our civilization to its knees. It's obviously a fictional disease in the film, a virulent bloodborne virus that sends its host into a state of extreme, uncontrollable rage. So the question will be, given that the infected are technically alive, how close is the rage virus to reality? The answer will surprise you because it's actually closer than you'd imagine. According to a study that was performed on mice back in 1994, and I'm dumbing down the study to keep the explanation simple, but it basically boils down to removing a single brain chemical, specifically the serotonin, from otherwise a normally functioning brain of a mouse. The study found that when the mutant mouse was confronted with an intruder, It attacks the intruder faster and more intensely than did the wild-type mice. It is also believed that the complete lack of serotonin in our brain would make us ultra-violent. So, in a sense, if we could develop a type of inhibitor that would either destroy or severely limit the brain's ability to absorb the serotonin, we might possibly become extremely violent, such as the infected in the film 28 Days Later. Interestingly enough, students in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Leicester have already answered this question. Although I have to point out that the model they've used, which was named SIR, susceptible, infected, and recovered or removed, has a specific set of rules. So it isn't exactly mimicking what the films and TV shows have portrayed the zombie apocalypse to be like. The first model makes the assumption that zombies could infect but not kill the uninfected. The next rule says that an encounter with a zombie would result in 90% of infection rate. 20 days is the maximum number of days that a zombie could survive without feeding, meaning they die after 20 days of starvation. The world population was set at 7.5 billion, closely approximating the real-world population figures. Then the model was started with one infected at day 0. During the initial 3 weeks, the zombies consistently multiply, but the threat seems rather benign. But then give or take a day or two after the initial 21 days, there's an explosion of infection rate and the zombie population begins to rise uncontrollably. The next 3 weeks paints a completely different picture from the initial 3 weeks, as humans across the world get wiped out in blistering speed. On day 100, only 181 uninfected remain on planet Earth. Human civilization practically ceases to exist. It is a chilling result to behold, but I believe it's important to take into account a few variables that a study of such large scale not fails, but has to omit in order to get some sort of tangible figure. What I'm getting at here is the fact that no study, especially one that tries to replicate a world event, can apply every variable in its formula that a real-world scenario might present. The study is nothing more than a model based on a set of variables chosen by the students, I'm sure with lots of research and careful analysis, but it's still a very much simplified version of its real-world counterpart. This is self-evident in the students' later models, in which they revised the model by adjusting some of the numbers. The argument was that people would fight back. They wouldn't sit around and sing Kumbaya as the zombies fed on their friends and families. So they gave the uninfected 10% chance of killing a zombie if an encounter were to happen. The students removed the 90% mortality rate of an encounter and replaced it with a probability algorithm that improves the uninfected survival rate for every encounter they successfully survive. This basically mimics experience. The more times you survive a zombie attack, the more you learn about them, and the more likely you are to survive. To balance things out, the zombies also received a boost in their lifespan. So instead of 20 days being the maximum number of days that can go without feeding, the students revised the number to 100 days. Then the model was started. The result showed that the explosion of infection was delayed by 10 days in comparison to the first model. But nonetheless, the zombie population grew exponentially after a relatively quiet period of 30 days. Unsurprisingly, the uninfected did much better under this scenario. At 100 days, 200 million still survived. At day 1000, 67 million uninfected still remain. Past the 1000-day mark, the infected begin to die off out of starvation. There just aren't enough of the uninfected for the infected to feed on. It takes another 6 years from that point for the zombie population to be completely wiped out. Then about 3 years thereafter, human population begins to rise again. So then it boils down to surviving 1000 days of the zombie outbreak. When you factor in the 7.5 billion population figure, if you survive the outbreak, that'll make you one of the 88 survivors for every 10,000 humans that were alive on day 0. That's 0.0088 probability of surviving for 1000 days. The way I figure, you're going to need a lot more than prepping and fine-tuning your survival skills to survive the 1000 days of the zombie outbreak. Preparations will help you initially, and you'll surely have better chance to survive than those who haven't prepared. But in the end, it really comes down to being one of the lucky 88s for every 10,000. That 0.0088 probability doesn't even account for the crazy humans who'll be going after other humans. You know, the Negans and the governors of the world? In some ways, it's a very optimistic view of such crisis. Again, I stress the fact that it's impossible to account for every variable in such study. So what do you think your odds are? Do you think you'll become zombie food on day 0? Can you survive 100 days? Or do you have what it takes to go past the 1000 days of survival? Let me know in the comment section and message me your number if you happen to own a bunker. Just kidding, not really, no just kidding, give me a number. Thanks for watching everyone, I'll see you on the next one, goodbye for now.